Alright everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about the middleweight division, and we're going to sort of connect two different storylines that are going on right now and how this could change the middleweight division. Now for me, I've said for a while now, I think the middleweight division is so empty, lack of depth, lack of talent. It's a dead division. Nobody has any interest in it, and the people that are good in the division aren't really fighting. So we're going to talk all about that, and we're going to talk about Bud Crawford because I think there is a storyline being made here in which we're going to see what's next for Mr. Bud Crawford. So let's start with talking about today's headline. Now, today's headline is Janibek Alimkhanuly versus Carlos Adames for a unification bout set to be announced for the Teofimo Lopez versus Shakur Stevenson undercard for early 2026. Now, this is what's come out sort of the past 24 hours. Um, let's start with the fight. All right, Carlos Adames versus Janibek Alimkhanuly. That would be for the WBC, IBF, and WBO belt. But I also think they're going to do that fight for the ring belt because Janibek Alimkhanuly is number one and Carlos Adames is number two. In ring, the belt is vacant. So there's a way in which they can capture all those belts, which leaves only one outlier, and that is Erislandy Lara, who's currently got the WBA belt and hasn't fought since he beat Danny Garcia. And Danny Garcia, he fought, must have been September of last year, Danny Garcia retiring in the ninth. That must have been last time Erislandy Lara fought. Now, he gained that WBA belt, beating Michael Zarafa on the Fedora Zoo undercard in March of last year. So not a lot of activity from the 42-year-old Erislandy Lara. But we're going to get to him. Let's focus on Janibek Alimkhanuly and Carlos Adames. Two guys that, again, haven't been very consistent. Janibek Alimkhanuly, he last fought in April, beating Ngama Singwe by round 5 TKO. Prior to this, he fought once last year in October, beating Andre Mikhailovich in Sydney. Carlos Adames, he hasn't fought since February when he beat, well, I say he beat Hamza Shiraz because I think the general consensus and my opinion is he no doubtably beat Hamza Shiraz, but it was a draw officially. Either way, Carlos Adames holds onto his belt. So that was the last time we saw those two guys in action. It's now September. So we're looking at Carlos Adames fighting once this year and Janibek Alimkhanuly fighting once this year. It's just a lack of any sort of action for these guys, and Erislandy Lara the same. I mean, he hasn't even fought this year, and it doesn't look like he's going to fight this year. And for a 42-year-old champion, you can start seeing the issues in depth in this division. Now, I'll give him credit. They haven't been mandatoried. The governing bodies aren't slamming them with challenges that they have to face. You've got nobody really in the division that anybody has any care to see. That sounds really harsh, but that's the truth. At the moment, the division is not got much going for it. There's no big names that are really putting their hands up. Now, we are going to go through some of the contenders because although I say that, I think there is some good fighters in the division. It's just, yeah, there's like one or two. There's like one or two that I really say, look at this guy. The rest of them, some of them I haven't even heard of that are ranked really, really highly. So we're going to get into all of that. As far as Janibek Alimkhanuly and Carlos Adames is, I think that's a very, very good fight. I said for a while that I think Janibek is the best in the division. But I don't think you can count out Carlos Adames. He was no doubtably sort of counted out against Hamza Shiraz and won that fight. I think he showed how good he is. And he's someone that I think is very adaptable. I think no matter what style you put in front of Carlos Adames, he will make it a very, very tough fight and he will fight his best. And there's no real style that you think Carlos Adames can't handle. As far as Janibek Alimkhanuly, I think he's by far the best in the division. I think he's an incredible fighter, but he's someone that I've been shouting at for a long time, saying we don't get to see, you never get to see him fight. I don't believe really anybody watched the Ngama Singwe fight. I don't even remember how it was streamed. Much like the Mikhailovich fight, that went to a purse bid and somehow it rocked up in Sydney. I can't even remember who they wanted Janibek to fight at that point. That might have been at a point where they were trying to get Janibek to fight Hamza Shiraz and he said no. Either way, I think this fight would be heavily favoured for me in Janibek Alimkhanuly's corner, but I think Carlos Adames, You can't count him out. I mean, there was a lot of storylines before and after the Hamza Shiraz fight. Beforehand, Carlos Adames really had no chance. Afterwards, it was all Hamza Shiraz isn't good at this weight. He needs to move up. Look at how much better he is at the new weight. But I don't think you can take away from how well Carlos Adames fought on that night and really should have had a win. Now, let's loop all of this in because the rest of the division, you've got Chris Eubank Jr., who's going to fight Ben. You've got Shane Mosley Jr., you've got Hernandez, the 29-year-old Cuban, 8 wins, 7 knockouts. A very good amateur, but hasn't really done a lot at the professional level. But he could be rated as number 1 or 2 in some of the divisions. Tori Isley, the American 27-year-old Nabo, WBO middleweight champion. You got Aaron McKenna, who I think is an extraordinary talent. I actually think this guy is very, very good. 26 years old, Irish, 20 wins, 10 knockouts, good amateur, great start to his professional boxing career. Has beat Uzma Lima, the guy that's going to take on Boots Ennis, and he's also beaten Liam Smith in his last outing by unanimous decision back in April. I think he's a top fighter, still climbing the ranks, but you can see, still young, great start to his professional career, had probably well over 70 amateur fights as well. I think he is one that in a few years we're going to really be saying he's the top of the middleweight division. I do think he's that good. And that's almost it. You got Etanoza Aliha, you've got people like Michael Zarafa or Mateo Tapia, but I don't think it's really that field. I think rated the highest out of all of those would be Aliha, the 27-year-old Italian, 22 wins, 10 knockouts. But like he's rated the highest, and you look at his box rec, because I'll be honest, I've never watched him fight, and his last opponent had a record of 19 wins and 33 losses. So for that guy being rated really highly in most organizations and the ring shows you the lack of depth in this division. And Chris Eubank Jr., I mean, how many fights are we going to have a look at? Like, how many fights do we expect him to be taking from now to the end of his career? I see him more of looking at whatever big money fights he can have. Do we see him coming back to middleweight and trying to get world titles? I'm not sure. I think he's better than most of those names, no doubt about that. It's more about what he wants to do. So, we've got Janibek Alimkhanuly and Carlos Adames fighting, and that happens. I expect Janibek to win. He ends up with IBF, WBO, WBC, and ring belt, leaving only Erislandy Lara to either fight someone who hasn't been named. I think for a long time they were trying to put Lara to fight. Like, once Lara won the belt in the first place, I thought the name that they wanted him to fight was Chris Eubank Jr. And then after the first Ben fight, I think they were then linking him again with that fight. It's just not going to happen. And Erislandy Lara, like I said, is 42 years of age. It wouldn't surprise me if he retired, if I'm being honest. It wouldn't surprise me if he retired. And this is where it comes in. Because I think within the next 12 to 18 months, Janibek Alimkhanuly, I predict to become undisputed middleweight champion, or in a fight for undisputed middleweight champion. And why I say that is, I expect he beats Carlos Adames, ends up with all the belts apart from the WBA. I wouldn't be surprised if Lara vacates. This sets up a vacant belt, Janibek Alimkhanuly, for an undisputed title match against Terence Bud Crawford. I don't expect Terence Bud Crawford to fight more than one time a year. And I think next year, at the end of next year, we're going to see Janibek Alimkhanuly versus Terence Bud Crawford for an undisputed middleweight championship. Now look, there is a lot of ifs, buts and maybes in that. There's no guarantee Alimkhanuly beats Adames. It could be the other way around. Adames could be in a fight against Terence Crawford for undisputed. Lara could not vacate, and we might have to see whoever wins between Alimkhanuly and Adames fight Lara, and we're not looking at an undisputed bout until 2027. It will be interesting to see what Terence Bud Crawford decides to do, because he is getting up in age. I know he performed as though he was 20 against Canelo, but the fact is he is getting up in age, and do we expect to see Terence Bud Crawford still fighting in 2027, 2028? I doubt it. I would be surprised if he's fighting after next year, and that's why I think it'll happen at the end of next year. I think Bud Crawford will drop down to middleweight. He'll fight whoever has the most belts, and that'll be Alimkhanuly or Adames, and it'll either be for all four or all five. that including the ring belt. And I think that'll be the setup for Crawford. I don't think we're going to see him at super middleweight again. I don't think we're going to see him fight David Benavidez at light heavyweight. I think we're going to see him fighting undisputed belt at middleweight against Janibek Canali next year. Let us know what you guys think in the comments below. What do you think Bud's going to do? Is he going to stay at super middleweight? Is he going to move to middleweight? Is he going to get that undisputed bout next year? I think it's the way it's going to be set out. I think after he wins super middleweight, Terence Crawford, we've now seen Turki Al-Sheikh trying and really pushing for Alan Canali versus Adames. I think he sees it as well. And Bud Crawford, if his last fight, he wins undisputed middleweight championship of the world, I mean, we're already talking about him at GOAT status. I think that would be incredible, an unbelievably incredible achievement. And to be honest, I think it's a belt easier to win than what he had to do against Canelo. I don't think any of these guys pose as big a threat as Canelo did. And the good thing is for Bud Crawford, it's actually closer to his best division, which I still believe is welterweight. All right, guys, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Like, subscribe, and I'm out of here. See yas.